Okay, so welcome back to SwitchCorner. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Outer Worlds on the Nintendo Switch. This, consider it our first impressions review. We'll be breaking down the story though, what you can expect from the Switch version, the frame rate with a fancy new graphic, and then talking about how it all plays, both docked and handheld. So with that, hit subscribe if you're new here, join our growing family, and let's get started. So let's keep this brief. In the Outer Worlds, you board the colonist ship Hope. You're headed for the furthest edges of the universe, expected to arrive pretty quickly and help basically colonize this place. Bad things happen along the way, and not only do you not arrive on time, but in fact you arrive decades later. Awoken from hypersleep, a mysterious stranger assists you as you find out these once barren planets are now ruled by factions and corporations that are all very much vying for power. Your mission is the age-old get out there, choose your side and win the fight. Nicely put in the game, you very much are the unplanned variable, and your allegiance is very much left in your own hands. You know, you're not forced to choose what side by the game. Overall, I really enjoyed the story here, whether it was the cutscenes or the countless interactions with NPCs where you'll be making just decision after decision. These multiple choice options absolutely keep your attention locked in though, and it gives you that sense of importance to basically how everything will play out, whether it's, the main quest line or simply a very small optional quest. Basically, this is, as I'd like to put it, the Fallout game we deserved, and I'm looking at you, Fallout 76. On a story front, great work from Obsidian. Okay, so let's do graphics first, because I think it's fair to say that's what most of us are interested in knowing. I think it's best summed up this one as, unfortunately, a mixed bag. Bringing such an incredibly detailed world to the Switch, it was always going to be a challenge. And while I will say it's not, the worst or anything, it's also not to the quality of your Skyrims or your Witchers. Everything in this world, it just basically has this blur to it, especially in docked. Textures have taken a huge hit, pixelation is apparent, and pop-in, while handled pretty well, it is still very noticeable. The big issue right now is the textures they went with, posters on the street are so obviously supposed to be heavy with detail, and you can barely make them out. It's just a little bit more obvious than it needs to be, and they could have just simplified these designs to make it better for the Switch build. So visually, by far the best way to play the Outer Worlds is in handheld, no doubt about it. It just assists by boosting these graphical compromises, it sharpens up that image. If you are buying this to play handheld, I actually think you're going to get the best experience out of it. The great design though, the world designs, the enemies, the NPCs, it's all still here intact, and you can see the creativity on offer. You've just got to be ready for that clarity drop that's just going to tarnish it all, sadly. The games, they're supposedly running at 1080p docked and 720p handheld, and yeah, handheld I for sure see it. Docked, it's kind of hard to recognize this image as HD. Now, I also want to be though fair to Obsidian. They've put effort in to try and make this very much an active effort to be the best it possibly can be on the Switch. This is highlighted with a small but welcome option in the form of adjusting text size. With so many dialogue options, information on screen and waypoints, it'd be very easy for this one to, in handheld, be basically unreadable. So respect to Obsidian for kind of being ahead of the game on this and thinking about it. The last thing then for graphics, character models, and while in game they largely match everything else in their quality, from textures through to, a kind of basic set of animations, but it absolutely works. It's the conversational element I want to pay particular attention to. Largely, I gotta say I really like these. I think it's by far the smallest downgrade the Switch version has seen, but it's also such an integral part of the whole story on offer, so I appreciate they've put the effort in. The characters, they look great, the designs are awesome, they remain very much the same, and sure, the animations are stiff, but yeah, generally I was impressed. Overall, graphically, I gotta be honest, I expected compromises, but these are even a little further than I expected. I think it's fair to say Obsidian clearly put some passion into this one and made sure it felt like a Switch product, but sadly, graphically, I will say it's falling a little bit too short for me right now. So while the Outer Worlds is targeting 30 frames per second, targeting here is very much the key word. Surprisingly, it was actually the reverse of what I anticipated though. The wide open, but largely inactive areas, they pretty much do a decent job at keeping this frame rate absolutely locked in. The big issue though, it rears its head actually in smaller locations, like the towns, but obviously there's a lot more population, a lot more movement. While they're not huge drops, it's pretty much consistent and fluctuates for the most part between 25 to 30 frames. I don't think it's the worst, and honestly every build of this game struggled, no matter the console. What I will say though is you would definitely feel it, whether it's just moving around town or you're in a gunfight, it's definitely, noticeable. So gameplay then, and let's start at the beginning with the character creation tool. Who you are is very much up to you, as you not only choose the way you look, but also your initial attributes. These will very much dictate how you play the Outer Worlds, at least initially. These though, they come in three forms. Your aptitude, this one gives your character like a backstory and a very specific additional boost in a trait, so let's say a +1 for determination. Then we'll move on to our skills. Here you'll start with a pool of points to assign, and these will also be rewarded to you as you play, so you can just round out your character further. These are, you can increase all sorts of abilities, let's say your persuasion, your handling of weaponry, or even just that general conversation path. Finally, the perks, and these are more specific boosts, like how much you can carry, your speed, or maybe a very particular dialogue skill. If I haven't already made it clear, the Outer Worlds is very much an RPG, and it makes that fact known immediately as you dive into menu after menu through these beginner steps. Basically, while this may be the first thing you see, expect to be seeing it a lot as you progress as well, because you'll need to keep on coming back here to, spend those points. So once we're done with this creation, then let's talk the main chunk of gameplay, and that basically comes down to three things. You got quests, dialogue, and combat. Starting small, you'll be fetching items and so on. Before you know it though, expect to be knee deep in enemy territory, praying those last few bullets you have will carry you through to survival. My favourite part of the Outer Worlds, it gives you the choice of approach. So for example, you could, talk your way out of a scenario, or maybe you could just, shoot your way out. It's got this great balancing act, letting you make the decision of, well, for me, what gives you the highest odds of survival. Well, dialogue then gives you a ton of options, and more will unlock as you progress. It's solid stuff basically. I think a lot of you though want to know, how does the gunplay feel? And it falls somewhere between Fallout and Borderlands. This isn't the next Call of Duty Warzone, that's for sure, but it is solid. The gunplay here, it's as much about pointing your gun in the right direction as understanding your opponent's attributes. Are they stronger than you? What is their health bar saying? Is this fight worth it for the potential loot? And is it even gonna, further the plot points? This isn't like a kill everything in sight type of game. This is more a methodical approach to what will you tackle next, and should you go ahead with it. The guns in combat though, I will say they feel decent enough. It's not perfect. You'll feel the difference immediately from a dedicated first person shooter, but it is still very much exciting, and the battles can be as intense as you would expect. My favorite part of the guns, it's actually the slow motion ability you get, and yeah, it's lifted straight from Fallout, but not only does it give you an advantage of speed, but it allows you to understand your opponents and their weaknesses, pointing out, high damage areas. Now I know I keep on saying 2 guns, but the weapon count here is impressive as well, whether it's simply a sidearm, a melee weapon, or something that's on a whole different level. So things like a grenade launcher, or basically anything that leaves an absolute path of destruction. On the side of the court shooting then as well, your work does not stop there. Expect to be monitoring things like weapon stats to understand what's most effective, your armor, and is it going to get you through this battle, what gear you're using, your health. There's just so many different meters to be reading. Quickly, you'll even actually be selecting a team of NPCs to manage and have them fight and die alongside you, one of my favourite points of the game. So with the Switch then, the big change, they've adjusted both aim assist to accommodate the Switch's Joy-Con with a little bit more of an auto lock, and then it's absolutely welcome gyro controls, and they are, I've got to say, fantastic. They work as you would expect in targeting, and they feel especially good when the slow-mo kicks in. These gyro controls though, they even come with options. Restrict them to just when you're aiming down the sight, or have them on absolutely all the time. The choice is yours from the menu. I'm a down the sights kind of guy. Overall with gameplay, it's fair to say I'm a fan of the Outer Worlds, though having beat it on the Xbox, I loved it there, and this Switch port, from first impressions, I'm a few hours in, I've got to say if you're gonna play it, you expect to be battling the visuals and the frame rate. Outer Worlds was never a perfect game on any console, and the middle for sure lulls with a few quests and story moments that just, you know, fall off the great pacing. By the end game, you will not regret your time with it and you'll want to jump back in. The question is the Switch version really the one you want to go for? So the final verdict, and if you've wanted Fallout on the Switch, this is about as good as it gets right now, falling somewhere between just that and Borderlands. There's no doubt the story is great, the world's stunning to investigate, and the gameplay tight. Question is, are you now willing to pay the price needed for the Switch port? And I'm not talking like cash value there, but the huge hit on the graphics. You know, it takes away from some of the magic of the game, the frame rate, the stumbles. There's no doubt there's a good game in here, but I can't help but feel if you have another way to play it, head there first, as it's either cheaper or even free if you're on like Xbox Game Pass. Right now I'd say wait to see what the patches do, or my recommendation if you do pick it up, make sure you play it handheld. It's going to be a hell of a lot better than what you will find in a docked variation. Thanks for watching today, I truly do appreciate it. Let me know any questions you have below in the comments, I'll get them answered as quickly as possible. And yeah, I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.